All right, so my name's Srisha Arpetav. I'm with Turn Digital. I'm one of the co-founders here, along with David Losey standing in the back, Mike Dixon sitting in the front, and Jeff Borowski, who is not able to join us today. So last time, for those that were able to join us, we had we had a great recap of the SharePoint conference from Mark Anderson. A lot of great material. If you are interested, go to our YouTube channel. We have all the recordings. Definitely worth checking out. If you didn't have a chance to attend and want a quick 1.5 hour brief on what happened. So this part of the meeting, we like to go over what has been announced by Microsoft over the last 30 days or so. There's a lot of stuff that's announced on a weekly basis. We can't possibly cover all of it, but we try to cover some of the most interesting things that we think would be relevant to our members here. So there's a new feature that's being rolled out now, which is the footer for communication sites. You might have seen a demo of this about a year ago. It's now getting to the point where you'll start seeing it in your general release tenants. And that's the ability to customize this footer with the logo, some links, some colors, and so forth. There's also a new experience being rolled out for Outlook on the web. So for those users that prefer to use Outlook on a browser as opposed to the full application, it's becoming to look more and more robust. And with that, there's also some new features. So besides the categories that you can now assign to messages in the cloud, you also have things like the emojis. You also have better calendaring, better options to find busy/free availability. We're starting to get more of the desktop experience in the cloud, which is always a good thing.
This is automatically rolled out, or is this have to be enabled?
This is automatically being rolled out. So there's a new feature available in SharePoint Online. It's called bulk approvals. So now if you have multiple items that require your approval within a given SharePoint site, you'll now have the ability to bulk approve them. So really helpful if you have a lot of time off requests, timesheet requests, things coming across where you prefer to review in one shot and then review in one shot.
Is this like any kind of workflow?
So this is using just regular SharePoint workflows that would require approval.
Question the business process.
Yeah.
If I can just wait till there's 20 and just approve them all, why even have me approve stuff?
Yeah, that's kind of what I was.
Well, for example, if you're approving timesheets at the end of the week, you might not want to do one by one. You might want to work at the bulk, see if the hours make sense, and approve all.
Yeah, maybe. I'm not blaming you.
So Microsoft Forms has forever had a challenge where if an employee that creates a form leads an organization, you lose that content behind it. There's now a new feature for global administrators to be able to take that form and reassign it to somebody else. This is currently being rolled out. I've already had to use it one time for one of our clients, so definitely a huge fan of this being available to us.
So this is already out then?
In first release, tenants is out. I think it's starting to roll out generally as well.
Nice.
There's also an update to Microsoft Teams. So if you have Office 365 Pro Plus installed in the one-click installation, this will now have Teams with the next update. So Teams is being pushed out to all of your endpoints that have Office 365. If you don't want this, there are steps that you can block and prevent it from happening. But for those that have not intentionally not deployed Teams yet, this could be a little bit of a wake call when users start seeing a new icon and start clicking on their desktops. For users that already have Teams installed as a standalone, this click once or run once installation will not impact it. There's also a new feature for live events in Microsoft Teams. So if you guys didn't have a chance to attend the session when Dave Fledge gave us a great breakdown of live events in Teams versus live events in Skype for Business, definitely take a look at that video on our YouTube channel. I've learned a lot personally from that session. But as an addition and enhancement to the live Teams, or Team Live broadcasts, there's now an ability to have live captions and live translations. So you no longer have to have someone sitting there typing. Pretty cool. There's a new feature in Stream where you can now replace a video without changing the URL. So if you ever upload a video, but it needs to be sent for approvals where things might be cut out or changed or need to be reshot completely, but you've already wanted to distribute those links to email distribution channels, embed those into your Stream web parts or different pages that have not been published yet, you now don't have to change the URL if you choose the video.
So we can rickroll everyone
Yes.
immediately.
You can rickroll everything.
Good to know.
So this is starting to roll out middle of next month and targeted by pretty much the end of this year. So that's it for the updates. A huge thanks to Centric Consulting for being our sponsor for the month. Let's give them a round of applause. And we would appreciate it if you gave them your undivided attention for the next 10 minutes or so while we learn a little bit more about Centric and what they do.
Thank you. Hello. Hi. I'm Scott Hall, work for Centric Consulting. I'll get into who I am and what we are in just a second. But thank you, everyone, and thanks for having us. So, Centric Consulting, we have a local model. It's very similar to Slalom. They're just much bigger than we are. So, we actually started out in the same state as Slalom about 20 years ago in Ohio. Similar model. We've grown the rest of the map. So here.
The one map for you.
It shows here.
Oh,
There.
it's showing on the recording, or at least through Teams. It
Yeah.
says projector.
The projector doesn't have
Projector's
enough
fading out.
colors.
For the rest, yeah, it must be fun. So, been around for 20 years, 62 Fortune 500 clients. Most of our consultants, at least the most original ones, are Big Four. We got really tired of traveling and decided, you know what, let's stay close to home and just get that Big Four, mentality, but for local clients. And so I worked for Booz Allen for many years, road warrior. I'm done with that. Now I get to be home and be with my newborn. It's good. So what we do is we do business consulting, technology, digital. I fall under the people and change, and also sometimes in the program management, technology. We'll see a little bit of that in a minute. But for the most part, we started out doing a lot of E&U, and now we've done a ton of, you're looking at it on the table. Yeah,
What is that?
What's E&U?
Energy and utilities. So
What is it?
energy and utilities. Yeah. So that was what we really are, was a bread and butter initially. We started out doing a bunch of that, and then we've expanded from there, helping a bunch of clients do development. We have an office in India that has 125 folks, I think, doing full agile, full stack. And we have a solution center in Columbus, Ohio, and also in Cincinnati. And so we don't always have to bring folks, say, on site to be able to help them, but they are onshore to be able to do full stack development. Since I only have 10 minutes, dive right over. So this little word bubble is actually a collection of all the statement of works I've ever worked on. So that's what I've done. I've done transformation, agile, DevOps, Lean, Microsoft Office, leadership, coaching. So that's my background. And I'm our people and change and enterprise collaboration. Enterprise collaboration is what we call Microsoft or AWS collaboration, basically. So we're here to talk about change development. And to raise hands, how many people here make IT decisions for their companies? All right. How many of you have had a project that you didn't feel comfortable enacting yourselves in the last year? All right. So, leader capability. 58% of leaders don't feel like they have the capability these days to actually manage change, comfortable with their skills. So, often you have to bring others in. Enterprise changes. 48% of employees don't feel like their organization has the necessary needs, actually, and skill set to do it as well. And then, how many has had a project fail last year? Anybody? Hopefully, nobody. All right, that's good. Change initiatives, only 55% of them are actually successful. When it comes to IT changes, 25%. So from the initial, what you would consider success, 25% these days are actually considered successful again, based on the real metrics. What we're saying is, with change management, and this is ProSci, Deloitte, they all say, with change management, you can change up to 97%. So what
the
we
source of this statistic? The source of this?
Deloitte and ProSci.
And then they include the 97% too?
Same source. They did so the survey was to about 5,000 IT leaders across the country, Fortune 500 companies. If you want to see that, I can send you that as well.
Oh, that's fine. Just
So what it makes it possible we want to get to is that, you you really have to make sure that you're prioritizing on your strategic values. You're really making sure that you're getting at the problem that's real and making that impact. It's all about the people. Often people are making these changes. They're not talking. They're not aligning it to say, a real problem. It's IT that's pushing this out. They've never once talked to the business. And so, how many of you have heard that recently? So, if you focus on the people, I'll give you a quick example of this one. If you focus on the people, it makes it so everyone actually feels like they're a part of it. So I did a Office 365 migration for Boston Symphony Orchestra from GroupWise. Know that all? I don't know if anyone's ever heard of that one. And when I started talking to them, they said, this is never going to work. And I said, why? They said, we're siloed. They said, this building doesn't talk to the other building. They said, we don't even use our calendar. Like, what do you mean? They're like, well, we all have paper calendars. We have a paper calendar, and we don't use our GroupWise calendar. It's horrible. And so I started talking to them. I said, well, if you had a calendar that looks like this, and I showed it to them, and I made it real to them, would you start using it? They said, maybe, but only if, our CEO does. I said, okay. So guess what I did? I had him send out a meeting invite to the entire company. But what that showed was there was executive alignment that made it so they realized that this is important to my CEO, executive considered director, but that executive alignment made it so everyone was like, oh my God, this is important. This is something that is going to impact me. I should pay attention. And so when you start talking about the people, telling them why it's going to be an advantage for them, why it's important to the company. So that can mitigate some of this, that you have to change. You can't stay what you're doing. If you're the Boston Symphony Orchestra, you're still on paper, that's not going to work today. I mean, this is not. The world's changing too fast. So they upgraded Office 365. They asked me afterwards, how the world were you so successful doing this? I said, I talked to your people. It wasn't a technology change, it's people change. And that's what most of this is. So if you have that people mindset of engaging them, talking to them, you will be successful. You might not be successful every time, but I guarantee you'll have a hell of a lot better chance of being successful if you engage those people up front. I'd say 75, 85% of the time, when I go into an organization, I do a survey of actually talking to people and asking them, why do you think that we need this change? What's happened in the past that has been successful or failed? They say, this is the first time anyone's ever asked me. I mean, that's a big indicator. If it's the first time anyone's ever asked them of what their opinion is, of what a change should be, that's probably a leading indicator of why maybe their changes have failed in the past, because they haven't had done something that's resonated with their people. So, it's holistic, tailored. You also can't, and David can attest to this, and anyone actually probably in here, you can't have a canned approach that works, Big Four or Big Five. They have these huge approaches that they will ram down your throat. Sorry if anyone's in here for them. But it works for their big clients. But to really make it so it's impactful and works for you, you need to tailor it. You have to do it to what resonates for the people you're working with. And like your clients, you don't try the same approach for everyone, do you? Nope, not at all. You can't. It doesn't work for them. Especially at the dollar value we're talking about. None of us are CEOs of $500 million companies here. So when the pennies count, almost.
So close.
So when that goes to kind of an agile mindset, when you think about it, it's iterating over time or over short periods of time, figuring out, all right, let's figure out what their problems are quickly. Anyone ever done sales training here? Okay. What's the big thing in that sales training? What's the number one thing you have to do to get a sale? I'll help you. Find their pain points.
Yeah, pain points.
Find their pain points first.
Yeah.
Get them to talk to you about their pain points. And they're basically selling you to them at that point in time. So they realize how badly they need you because they're talking about pain. So find the pain points first, and then iterate on it. Iterate on that and say, all right, this is the pain point. How do we fix that? All right, let's come back. What's the new pain point? Let's fix that. So when you're doing these IT changes, rolling out Teams, maybe chat first is the first thing you have to replace. And then it's, oh God, the structure of this just doesn't make sense. There's sprawl, there's so many Teams channels going on. Maybe I have to redirect my training approach. Maybe I have to redirect the people that are aligned to this to start giving messaging about that. Maybe we need to give some directions and governance. So quickly iterating on that will help you out. And then, change management, which is mainly what I do, but not really. Reorganization is pivotal. If you have a new CIO come in, that's change management. Imagine the strategic direction that happens every single time a new CIO comes in, new CTO. There's a complete pivot. You need someone to manage that cultural change, merger. I'm a curator right now. Guess what? It's merged with Dr. Pepper. Talk about two massive companies coming together, and I'm actually in charge of the agile transformation. They're completely waterfall. So it's culture. Not only is it a technology change, but it's all of its culture. And it's, for them, it's daunting. They say, well, we're in two different ADs, we're two different systems. We live in Mexico, they're in Canada, or Burlington. It's managing that cultural change and making them realize that, no, they're one team, they're one company, and making sure all those processes go together, making sure that that happens, and you can feel good about it. It's a daunting task, but if you do it, we will all be more successful together. So I think the change management really helped me with that. And like I said, you don't want to jam a can approach down your throat. So these are some of the models. This is Cotter's 8 models of change. That's ProSci, Kubler-Ross. Just a few of the change management methodologies that you can use and that we do use. I think that can really help out. And a few minutes over, so I apologize, but that's centric and a little bit about change management, what we do.
I like Kubler-Ross. I like Kubler-Ross.
It's kind of funny.
Yes, the Kubler-Ross is good. And speaking of which, did everyone see Tracy's blog post about adoption? Tracy, not Liz.
Yeah, so we also have I don't know if they've seen it. I co-authored an ebook on Office 365 adoption. If anyone wants to see it, I can send out to the group on the LinkedIn page as well. But the Kubler-Ross one, I agree, is funny. If you are interested in DevOps, if you read like Phoenix Project, which is a little too close to home for some of us, but that'll get into it. So, and all right.
All right, now for the main event.
Thanks,
Chrissy, over to
Demetria.
you. If you could share your screen on Teams.
Sure. Oh, there's one more. I'll just do it on this. Yay, it goes, it's going. Drum roll. Oh, and, whoa, yikes.
We have it on the video.
Oh, okay, good. So
We don't have it on the screen.
people in,
This is the room.
oh. I know. It's weird. I have my presentation forefront. Let's, maybe if I just need to toggle between one.
I don't think it's on your side, Chris.
You gotta check the room, Steve.
Oh, on this side, you mean, this panel? Yeah, because I had it displayed
I
and
thought
I
you said it
haven't
was
shared out.
Now I've lost it on left.
Okay,
Cool.
what about online?
Yep, we're good.
Yay, thanks, Luigi. Oh yeah, that's good. Okay, good afternoon, everyone, or good evening, actually. And thank you again to Boss Office 65, Dimitri, Dave, Mike, and Jeff and Spirit. And thank you, Centric, for sponsoring. So, as the name implies, it's a goodie bag. Who does not like a goodie bag? Especially if it's some O365 apps. So, of the 4 that are there, show of hands, who who have used and are continual users of Microsoft To Do? Oh,
Continuous?
okay. I'm sorry?
Yeah, on the continuous.
Okay,
All
that's
in all.
fine, that's fine, that's fine. OneNote, in any version, whether it's 2016, web, or Win 10. Power BI. Ooh, yeah! And Microsoft Flow. Yay, cool, and of course we now, I'm not really talking about the third of app of the Power Platform, but I do mention it a little bit. So, okay, there we go. Okay, great minds must think alike, Scott, and neither of us saw our presentation, but yes, being that I am a librarian that does code, what you see in front of you, or whether in person or the folks online, is a word cloud. So all those terms make up generally who I am, both professionally and casually as well. And surprisingly enough, I did it randomly, and it's kind of ironic that sort of what's in the center is that, yes, I'm a Jersey girl, Massachusetts, and my husband's Canadian.
And a salsa dancer.
Yes, exactly. Yes, that's also the dance, not the food. So the food is good too. All right. So what you see here, so people that are a fan of QR codes, feel free if you want to scan. That will link out to my website, librarianservice.com, that has all the contact information. So I do have cards if you do want cards, and I do have a flyer that has that same QR code if those that do like paper. And I see people online can't even try scanning the QR code. So I'll give it a bit. Did it work? Those that were trying?
I just took an image.
Oh, okay. Now the presentation is also posted on my website, and normally I don't do it before the presentation, but it is on the website now. So you can cheat and follow along, but hopefully don't go in advance. Okay, so before we continue, as the presentation description alluded to, it's talking about two different examples leveraging O365 apps. One involving Power BI and patent data, and the other one involving OneNote, To Do, and Microsoft Flow. Now, just because I have it in that sequence, I'm going to leave it up to you guys, or even the online, because who knows, maybe the online could vote more. So everyone vote. Being that I have it in the outline here, who wants number 2, Power BI?
Can you vote for more than one thing?
Sure, of course. That's fine. You can double dip.
Yeah.
So wait, show those hands again. Let's see. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. How many online, Dave? Is anyone chiming in?
You want
No one's voted online yet.
Okay. I'll give it a couple.
Feel free to vote online, people.
Hey, it's an equal opportunity.
Chris, quick question.
Sure.
Are what you're talking about tonight mostly only available on O365 business flavors? Or
No, not necessarily. In fact, for example, actually in both examples, can be done with the free versions. If you want to add additional features and and various iterations of the process, you may need the fee versions, or when it comes to the flow, either a P1 or a P2.
Mhm.
But generally speaking, everything that I'll describe can be done with the free. Yep. So, anyone voted online yet? And while we're waiting, were there 8 folks for number 2? Now I lost track. There's 8? Okay, good, thank you. All right, who wants number 3? That's OneNote, To Do, and Flow. Oh, I think we may have a time. 1, 2. I'm going to talk about phones. It's just a matter of which one's first. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Oh, okay. There's 13. Any votes on mine, Dave? Nope.
Their votes don't count anymore.
Okay, so with that said, sorry, Paragraph folks. Though, don't worry. I'm actually going to be really quick the slides, and then we're both all going to dive in together. Here's what 25 seconds. Okay, knock on wood. The demo gods are with us. Oh, and I'm excited. And first one that calls it out. Okay, Dimitri, Dave, and Mike, you're excluded. Sorry, you'll have to be excluded because you probably already know what it is. What platform is this presentation on?
Sway.
Yes, who said that? Yep. There you go. I'll give
I
you a
just
pen.
said that, wow, somebody's actually found a good use for Sway.
Hey, Sway is good. So I have to say, I'm liking the new features with PowerPoint. They're good. Especially with that you're able to time and rehearse.
Next time you do that, you'll have to hit F11 to hide the address bar.
Oh, that's right. I usually do, but yeah, but that's right. But I don't think she cheated though. All right, now here is the, okay, this doesn't have volume. This is actually a 6-minute video of the actual process. And, ooh, it's really expanded, but what you're actually, oh good, there you go. So this is basically the process after it's put together. And for those that may be working with Microsoft Flows, that's the Flow button. And where the process is prompting for information. I'm just gonna, this is just randomly. So that what this is that in a lot of cases, when ideas strike, you're not going to have maybe your laptop with you or even your tablet. More than likely, it's going to be your phone. So this is a process that allows you to really capture those big ideas on something as small as a smartphone.
Where did those suggestions come from? Yeah, follow.
I'm sorry?
Those automatic suggestions come from.
Oh, that's because of a previous example that comes in. If you've actually, so it's sort of like an IntelliSense, but not exactly. I haven't built any sort of ontology and taxonomy in this. It's just strict IntelliSense. So, oh, okay, there you go. And even though I put in, okay, it seems like it's a very slow video, so. Okay, so you capture, and I kept it really short, the comments, but of course, when ideas strike, it might be a long habit and so forth.
Or does it have to be typed? Can it be dictated?
That's an excellent question. It probably can, though that could be a next iteration of the process that could be incorporated into the flow that it will allow for that dictation. And that's something that instead of doing it as a flow button, it may be better to build it in Power Apps, but it would still be that same process. So basically, and then what, okay, and so of course, it's sent it, so what you're looking at here is actually a to-do. So then that way, you just captured your creativity. Have a notification in your to-do list.
So this is all based on a flow.
Yes. What connects all the 3 pieces? Oh wait, no. Actually, technically 2 pieces, really. OneNote and To Do is the flow. And then what I'll show is that just from that same process, is that from the phone that you just captured your idea. It has a reminder in to do, and it automatically captured it into your OneNote. Now, the label of the OneNote obviously is completely arbitrary. It's whatever you name it, but that's it. That's what was actually entered.
But can you do the opposite? Can you put a note in OneNote and have it link up to to-do yet?
That's a very good question. You'll see in the process, that is the sequence. It actually goes to OneNote and then to do. It just so happens that the video demonstrated it, that I demonstrated it with flow and then to do.
And the OneNote has to be 2019, can it be 2016?
I'm sorry?
OneNote, does it have to be 2019 or can it be 2016?
Oh, could be any. It's because in terms of the update, and the whole point of putting it into the to-do, which is completely optional, is that remember you're just capturing your thoughts on the fly. So you may not be completely grammatically correct, or it's just a matter of, ideas. So that to-do really acts as a reminder to then go back to your OneNote to update and flush out that idea. Oh, and we're just showing what I'm showing here. Sorry, it's okay. Into the questions. Let me know if you want me to pause and just go back. This is actually the actual flow.
Did you build the whole flow on your phone?
No, though technically you could. Technically you could. I don't really recommend it for the sake of your eyes, but I did build it on my desktop. But you could actually just pull it up. So here, the to initiate the process was the flow button, and then just the flow tab is where to access it. And yes, I have an Android, so this is the example on the Android, but the same thing can be replicated on an iPhone for those iOS people. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. It's good. Okay, so these are the basic ingredients. So when it comes to OneNote, a OneNote account, and then at least a one notebook, obviously. Okay, same with Microsoft To Do. And then I do recommend to at least have a list. You don't have to have a dedicated list, but again, it makes it easier for organization if you have multiple lists. For those that may not be general users of To Do, if you have multiple lists, it makes it easier to really identify and organize your activity. And then, of course, a Microsoft Flow account. For each one of these, I think that's it. For each one of these, you can build this process, the basic process, with the free versions. Now, if you want to take it a step further and expand upon the process, or if you want to share, or if you want to build upon the process, I do recommend getting the free versions, especially when it comes to flows. And the very last line, the last ingredient, is key, because especially when you're building flows, be very, very patient, because the simplest flow should be able to run. The operative word is should, but the more complexity that you add to it, and even though you would anticipate it running, it may fail. Now, it's very easy to then go back and review what made it fail and made the proper changes, but what those changes are that for the flow to accept and for it to run properly cannot always be anticipated. So again, just be patient. And then the preliminary steps. So when it comes to the OneNote, you could create that OneNote, and in this particular example, I'm recommending that you create a section because it builds it on that the sections already existed. Now, a next iteration, you could have it that it doesn't depend on an existing section, which I actually tried building, but that particular flow kept on failing me. So for the simplicity of this presentation, I'm showing an example that did run. And as was mentioned earlier, whichever version of OneNote you use, it works with any one of them. And then I just have a reminder there for the teams, users in the room. Remember, for every team that's created, you already have that OneNote. So if you're a really avid team users and you want to post it to that team notebook, you don't have to recreate another notebook because it's already in there. And like I mentioned before, with the to-do account, I do recommend creating that list just for easy organization. It's not necessary. You can still have it run without it, but it just makes it nice. P0 for Microsoft Flow, of course, refers to the free version of the license. You can use that one, but depending upon your uses for it, especially if you're going to be sharing, you may want to upgrade to any of the advanced versions, whether it's the P1 or the P2. I do have anything that points to any documentation. That's in the last slide, which is a resource slide, which is basically a linked bibliography. Hey, I'm a librarian, so I will be using librarian lingo. Oh, and I forget to mention if there's any, well, people already been asking questions, but I do want to remind that feel free to interrupt me if you do have questions. If anything that involves more of a detailed answer, I may defer it to the end, but feel free, and that goes for the folks online as well. So the next step is basically putting all those ingredients together. So this process was an instant flow. So for those of you that have already built flows, and especially with the new UI, which I love, is it distinguishes which type of flow you're creating. This particular flow is an instant flow, which will have that manual trigger, which is the button. And then, of course, between any flows, there's always going to be a trigger and then an action, but that action is actioned because it could be multiple actions. And then it's just a matter of what I'm referring to here, especially since the trigger is, yes, ma'am.
So is an instant flow just defined as one with a manual trigger?
Pretty much, yes. There's other types of flows, and that's a good question. But I do know in this particular example that if you want the manual trigger, that it's the button flow. It is the instant flow. Yeah. And then the other one is scheduled flow, and then the third. Okay. When we go live at right now, I'm blanking.
Automatic.
Yes, automatic. That's it. Thank you. And what I'm talking about here with required or optional, that is that when you have the button flow, the manual trigger, that you're able to specify parameters of input. So if you remember from the video, I had questions that, for subject, story, and date. So for each of those fields, you can specify whether or not those fields are required or optional. And just for the simplicity of the process, I pretty much prefer to like to have things optional unless it's needed. And yes, Mike.
We have a question from a user online.
Sure.
Can you do Power Apps instant flow as well as an alternate to the button?
Yes, because in fact, when you first initiate the flow, you could specify whether or not the manual trigger is going to be run via Flow or via Power Apps. So, yes. Good question. Oh, okay, no, that's it. So this is basically what I was referring to, saying, sorry, I like to move around here. So when you click on the ellipsis next to each and every field, that is specifying the parameters for each field. So the very third one is where it's an optional field. Now, the optional one is not on by default. So if you're building any flow that involves with asking for input, and if you want to have the fields optional, you want to make sure you set that before you have the flow running. Because if not, and you go to test it, it's going to want that field even though if you don't. Now, of course, there may be situations you would want required fields, but in the cases that you don't, you want to make sure to change that. Okay. So the next step is actually the action. So the first step is that trigger, and the next step is the action. And the first action is actually having the data that's collected from the manual input into OneNote. So again, this particular example is dependent that the section is already there. There can be another iteration that can be built that it creates a section. I have been playing around with it, but it kept on failing in certain examples, and the whole point of that is that now it does involve expressions and specifying variables, because the whole point of the section is that you want to specify for it to refer to the previous step as a URL. But it gets a little tricky, but that could be a part 2. So that basically is the process there. And what you're looking at in the page contents here, now, for those that, I think most everyone in this room and probably online are coders. So what, there you're looking at the basic framework of HTML, probably even from high school days, or even middle school days, right? I do recommend that you script it this way. The reason for this is that the page title for your OneNote, okay, for it to be written into OneNote, you want to tag it as the title in the head. Because if you don't do that, it'll still post to the OneNote, but everything that you post will be posted to the body and not as a title. Which is fine, but then you'll have to take that extra step and manual cleanup. This completely automates it. And then for those that have already worked with Flow before, you may are already what you're seeing there with the button and the field, subject, key button, story. That's basically the dynamic content that's in that Flow window to the right. Okay. And pretty much the last step before saving and testing is adding in the to-do. Now, the flow will run without the to-do, which is fine, but it's nice to incorporate the to-do in there because then, again, you have that reminder in you. Now, the thing I do want to highlight, and for those that even though you've been using Flow and you sort of like maybe your eyes grow wide when you think of expressions, that with the due date field is an expression in there. But it's a very simple expression. Just because it's an expression, you're finding that most expressions are very logical. Well, it is a logical workflow, right? Yeah. And basically what that expression does is that it takes the defined date of the created date of the OneNote and adds X number of days to that date as the due date. Now, of course, whatever number you want is completely arbitrary, but that's what it involves there. Now, just like in the action step with the OneNote in the page content, now I didn't do it here because it's not really necessary, but you could script that as HTML as well, if you wanted to get a little, fancier. And then, of course, specifying the particular list. Again, the list is not necessary, it would still run, but it makes it easier for organization.
Christine,
Yes.
quick question about to-do. I haven't used it. Is it to-do is your own personal to-do? Is it possible to assign a to-do to another person? Basically a task to another person.
There is sharing
Yeah.
capabilities, but I don't know if you can assign it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that would be something like Planner.
Exactly.
You wanna
That's
do
just
that,
That's
right.
why I couldn't use to-do.
Use the right tool for the right job, man.
Yeah.
And with To-Do, you can use both your personal Microsoft account and your business account, if you work or a school account. But I'm trying to think, you can share a To-Do. So, which could be
Well, but To-Do-
along the same lines.
To-do is intended to be your personal portal
Yeah.
for tasks that are assigned to you.
Right.
Yeah.
So you can connect it to Planner, but it'll only show you the tasks that are assigned to you in that Planner.
Right. Well, and think of really the To-Do web client, because all this, is web and also the app. This Microsoft To-Do really has that same functionality as the Outlook To-Do, the Outlook tasks. So, which can also be shared. So, yeah. Was that helpful? Excellent. Thank you. Any questions online, folks? Oh, okay, cool. All right, so the really the last step is, of course, saving your flow. And then there's the flow checker, which I'm sure people that have worked with flow before, this is not new.
That's where the cursing begins?
Yes. Or again, remember, it's patience. And praying. Maybe crossing fingers. And especially with the testing. But of course, before doing the testing, do the flow checker. It's like the equivalent of really your spell checker before you send something out. And then one thing that I do want to mention, and it's not completely required, but it does help in terms of continuity. Continue. I'm tongue-tied. Good. And all I've had is water. Anyhow, you know what I mean. Is really leveraging best practices, because when you build your flow, it's going to keep it at the default name of the particular step, whether it's a trigger or an action, or of course there's some things that are both. You want to make sure that you rename that step to something that is more descriptive what you're doing. Again, it doesn't have to be something long. Keep it simple. Just think of it that if you were going to be sharing this flow with a team member or passing it along, that someone that was not originally involved with that flow would be able to pick up where you went off. And of course, adding the comments. So it's the equivalent of like, with HTML and CSS days of annotating comments. And I see a question back there.
Do you know, or does anybody know if Microsoft has any plans to let you save bad flows so you don't have to lose all the work? Or is there any way to do that now?
Oh, you mean
Other than
save
taking
something that
screenshots?
that's not running?
You're working for 3 hours.
Oh,
to
yeah.
maintain your patient sheet. It won't let you save it.
No, it does. It does. Yeah, you're able to save it even if it doesn't run. And then, of course, what you want to make sure is that if it's not running, you want to make sure that in your list of flows, and even your administrator can do this in the Microsoft Flow Admin Center. Make sure that just to switch that toggle button, so then that way the flow doesn't run. But it does allow you to save. But does it give you an error message? Or
Yeah.
What browser are you using?
I tried it in all the browsers.
Oh, okay. Because sometimes it might be browser dependent, or not only I found that it's sometimes browser dependent, can even be day dependent. One day, Chrome works better, one day Firefox works better, and one day Edge works better.
Usually say.
But never IE.
Right, never IE. IE's dead.
And then which license are you using?
Or Safari, I'm sure Safari, no, again, I'm not an expert, so I can't speak to Safari, but.
Safari is
I don't
max
think I-
IE.
Right, exactly, that's right, so I'm sure it runs in Safari. Okay. So now, this is the good stuff, okay. So.
Someone's being used. It's like, all right.
I could always just go to
Somebody
my.
online suggested to you that you can save a flow as long as all of the required fields are populated.
Oh, so maybe
So it
something.
doesn't have to be working, but maybe, so check to make sure for your flows that your required fields are filled in,
Oh.
and then save.
And actually, that, to follow on that point that Mike just said, and thank you whoever online user,
Yes.
said that, I'm sorry, who said it?
Anatha.
No.
Anatha.
Anatha, thank you, Anatha. And those typical required fields is that at least you have a trigger in action. If you just have the trigger and no action, it's not gonna allow you to save. So at least have at least one, even though it may not be the action you want, but those are the basic required fields. Oh.
That is a long URL.
I know. Hey, it's my domain name. Should have wanted that. Okay. Yes. Yay! At least it's authenticated that there, so it didn't ask for, so we got it. I should be able to just do. I should have just gone to either portal or office.com, but oh. Now I do. But I'm doing this on purpose just so you can see that. Now, the other advantage that you may want, let's say a P2 license, is that if you wanted to, let's say, develop more than one environment, let's say if you did want to create it as a task center production, that is only allowed in a P2, so not even a P1. In there. Okay, so while that's loading, so we have the basic ingredients here. Okay, and so remember in that example, the sunsets was the one that was actually first created. So, but in this particular case, we're gonna actually build that whole process on the fly. So we already have the notebook. We could keep it in the same section. Or I could create a different section. Show of hands, who wants new section?
Second.
New section.
New section, new section? Okay, so let's go with new section. Oh, sorry, online folks. Do the online folks agree?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're gonna go new section and
Good point.
just.
Yes, they all agree.
Or at least the majority. Not every, no, we can't all agree, but as long as it's the,
all agree.
it's majority. Oops.
It's amazing. Yeah.
So, I'm just gonna appropriately name it Boss Hall 365. We're all in agreement? Does that sound good?
Sure.
It's appropriate? Okay. Wow. Okay. We need the Jeopardy theme song. See, this is, hey, that's a good one.
Why this so slow?
Go on. Yeah, there it goes. Okay. All right, so we have a section, but we're going to leave it there because that's not, not really required. So we have the basic ingredient there. We have the notebook, and we have a defined section. Okay. Now we have the list. So there's the example list from before. So just like with the OneNote example, do you want to create a whole new list?
Sure.
Okay. So let's keep it simple. And do it as Boss O365. Okay, and look at that. Since it's alphabetical, it goes to the top of the list. So I think my social is over experimentations, but Okay. So we have the two basics, the notebook and the to-do. So now we're going to build the flow. So the very first one, note-taking automation, that of course is the flow that was based on that process. But we are going to build it together. So what I'm actually going to do is that you guys, or the folks online, so whoever chimes in first, will be the leader, and I'm just the scribe, okay? I'll only interject if there's, like...
Well, this is a test.
Yes. Okay, so here's the new. Here's your the first test question. Which selection do I choose?
Instant.
Very good. Are we all in agreement? Oh, crap.
Here's where the cursing starts.
Yeah, there we go. Okay. So here we go. Now, I believe, yes, I think it was you that asked the question whether or not it could be, and also someone online asked about it too. See, it gives you the two options of what's going to trigger the flow, whether it's going to be flow or actually Power Apps. So you could already start this process on Power Apps, but for this particular exercise, and keeping it simple, and we're going to just choose the flow.
Can the answer be both?
Good question, but let's see. Hold on. No, it's one or the other. So, however, this flow, you can build a Power App that will leverage this flow.
Sure.
So, yeah. All right. Again, flow name. What do you guys want to name it?
O365 flow. They're all the same thing. I don't know which is which. So.
Oh, did you say O365 or
Yeah,
Boss
O365. Oh, yeah, whatever was before, but add flow to the end of it so we can keep track of what is from where.
Because you choose instant. There's no option.
All right. There we go. Okay, so So we have the flow created in there. Okay. And see, there's the manual trigger. Now, a couple of questions. Okay. Remember the recommendation for best practices? What do you want to first program? What input you want to include? Or do you want to update anything according to best practices?
I want parameter description.
I'm sorry?
I want parameters.
Okay. Okay, so by just clicking there, it says add input. All right. So we, just to follow that same exercise, this is a process that you want to capture your creative ideas. Generally speaking, it's always going to be text. And by default, the field will just say input. But this is also recommended, you want to brand it, rename it to something that is more understandable to the user. So,
Big idea.
big idea? Everyone in agreement?
That sounds good.
Okay. And any parameter to that particular input. Do you want to make it required or optional?
Required.
Okay. So we did that. Oh, wait, actually. Wait, I went too fast. Add input. Do you want it to be text or what type of question do you want the next one to be?
Yes, no.
Yes, no? Okay.
Yes.
So, what yes, no question?
Will this make me $1 million?
Okay, thanks Dave for the earworm. I have the Bare Naked, God bless you, Bare Naked Lady song in my head.
And now we do.
Yeah.
Sorry. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
That one I say that says optional.
Oh, okay. Good question. All right.
So actually, so I don't know about the rest of you, but whenever I build a flow, I make everything optional until I build it and test it, and then I go back and add whether it's going to be required or not. Otherwise, you really will be cursing at the flow.
That's true, especially since the optional is not default.
Yeah.
So the required is default, so that's a very good point.
I wouldn't want to make a yes, no field optional, it's either going to be yes or no.
Right.
It's kind of hard
It's got to
to,
have an answer.
it's got to have an answer, yeah.
Some yes nos have a third state of undetermined,
That's true.
so it could be an undetermined yes or no.
Well, yeah, yes or no is only gonna be
Let me tell you, your flow's gonna love that.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
If you go to click it, if you know.
Okay, do you want to put anything else?
Number,
Number?
cost.
Okay.
Should be cost, number, or currency.
So,
Awesome.
Cost. Every big idea has a cost.
expected cost?
Sure.
Does that sound good? Okay. Do you want that required or optional?
Optional.
Okay. Any other fields?
I think that's enough.
Do you want the date?
Sure. Deadline.
So you want that as a deadline?
If this is gonna make me big money, then that's right. I should really put a date on
That's
that.
true.
That's
And do you want that optional or required?
Required.
Okay.
Procrastination's of the devil.
So,
Yeah.
so you left it checked, which left it optional.
Is there a limit on?
No,
Then you can have a.
No, that would
only
be-
a
now
set
it's
deadline
there.
If it'll make you $1 million.
See, It's just highlighted when you click on the ellipsis.
No,
Yep.
Is there a limit on the
Yeah.
number of inputs?
You know, that's actually, I haven't run into any limit, but that's a good question. Well, also think about it, if this is going to be on your mobile, you want to make it something that is going to minimize scrolling. So their common sense could dictate, but
Just because.
For the
you can't, doesn't mean you
system,
should.
I don't really know if there's an actual limit. Does anyone else in the room know or online?
Actually, one of my coworkers, she does flows, but what she does with it, she always has, but the most that the faculty can tolerate, and like, let's say 5 or 10 questions, and then once they answer that, they get hit with another, with another flow to do that question, because if they see that long list, they just walk away.
So basically, it sounds like it's the same rule that you would apply to creating surveys.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so should we leave it at 4 or should we go for 5?
4's good.
4 is good. Okay.
One question.
So now we have.
I have a question here.
Can we have any of these flow depending on the answer to previous one?
A
Dependencies
dependent.
between these flow sequence.
That you talk about a dependent answer. That's something you would build into your flow. You would still capture that as your input, but in your action, you could have it either as a parallel branch or a conditional step that's in your action that would then build it into as a yes or a no. So that could be an iteration. So the simple answer to the question is that yes, it can be, it can be done, but you would build it in the action, not you.
What I mean, it means that when you have expected costs, for example, if expected costs get into 5K, I
Okay.
may have another option coming in. If it is at
Right.
200K,
Oh,
so
right.
that becomes, so a lot of things depends on the
Exactly.
value of the previous.
So in that particular situation, you wouldn't build this then as an instant flow with a manual trigger. You would build it, you would actually add another app into the equation.
So basically, you're saying it actually does allow that kind of the complex flow.
Yes, you could create your questions that would include dependent questions. But rather than building it as an instant flow for the manual trigger, your trigger will, let's say, be a Microsoft Forms. Because in Microsoft Forms, you can build it that it will allow dependent questions, but of course in Forms, it's called branching. So you could build it that way. And so the trigger would be when a survey response from Microsoft Forms is received. That would be the trigger. That you look confused.
No, I just want to see if it does that kind of complex
Yeah.
decision making.
Exactly. So if you want to build your input that has the dependency, you're better off doing the trigger as, let's say, a survey like Microsoft Forms as the trigger. And then, but build that questions and content in the forms. Okay, so we have the trigger. Anything else that you want to do with this step? Or we could actually do anything else as the last step. The
Best
last.
practices?
Yes, best practice. Do you want to attend to the best practices now or later? Doesn't matter.
No.
There's no right or wrong answer there. Huh?
No.
No? Okay. So in order to do that, you just click on the ellipsis there. You're gonna rename.
What did you rename it?
Yeah, you can't rename a trigger.
Oh, you know, actually, in this particular case, you can't. You're right. Oh, because it's a button. Yes. Okay. However, you can add a comment. So,
Big ideas.
okay, big ideas. How about, okay, since I'm the scribe, capturing big ideas. Not capitalizing.
So this comment is just a comment inside the flow, right?
Yes.
This is-
Well, at
This
least
is not
for,
displayed on the form.
you know, that's a good question. I know for actions it is, that an unseen comment, but we'll soon find out. Because we're going to build it to run it. I believe this is also, but we'll see. If not, then that's, again, this is a whole learning process. This is because I know for action it is, but for triggers, I'm not sure. So we built the trigger, so now we're building in the next step. So remember, the next step is actually you're going to be capturing that manual input into OneNote. So now, okay, there's a gremlin. Okay, for those that have workflow before, you can actually just continue to type, grab, scroll the list, and in this particular case, we want to create a page and a section. Now remember I told you, now it responds quickly. But if you notice, one of the options is creating a section. That is possible, though that's something that is a flow that I was I'm still in the process of doing because it wasn't running correctly. Because I think it's just a matter of update, because remember, the next step then is dependent on that step, and being that the section is not created and it wants to point to the URL for that particular section, so yeah. So here is the particular case. Again, with the notebook key, you select the notebook that you want. And remember, there's the section that we created, the Boss O365. Okay. So now I'm going to stop here and let's see. All right, for the page content, what do we do here in order that the information that's collected posts it as a notebook page title?
HTML title.
Yep. Oh. Just for the sake of time, I'm just going to quickly spell it. Ooh, hope if I spell it correctly. Okay, so you got the basic HTML framework. All right, so now it's just going to really fill in everything. So for the page, all right, so for the page title, what information that is from the manual input that you'd like to have it automatically post as the page title? So if you want to be reminded, now it's going to, some of the data is the automatic metadata that is being captured just in the normal manual button flow, like city, country, region, because it's capturing the location. So you could do it that way as well. Now, remember, the very first thing that we collected was big idea.
But that goes in the body.
Okay, that could be in the body, but okay, what field do you want it to be as the page title? What would make it easier for you to identify?
Big idea.
Big idea? Okay. So again, this is just leveraging the dynamic content. Want to just do it there. There. Let's see. So, do you want to put in the other information? Like I think we had expected cost and even the deadline date. Want that? Or the yes, no? Okay, so we have okay, why isn't it that? Okay, I just stopped behaving. Come on. Fantastic. Oh no, oh good. Okay, so what we want to do, this is where you may want to always remember what you put in.
Just, okay, 2 screens, okay.
Well, and also the crying out loud.
You need to win a bigger laptop on SharePoint Saturday.
There we go. Okay, sometimes, of course, what I was trying to do there, for those that work with flows, remember, in the dynamic content, you want to specify, sometimes it's always going to be a collapsed list of items. You just want to click on more. If you're still not seeing it, and you just know that, whatever field you're looking for, you could always just type on searching it. Okay, and I could build it as a table, but we're just going to have different line items. Why not? Okay, we have expected cost. Right. Oh. And what was the yes, no question?
Rich.
No. I'm sorry?
Okay, Rich.
Money to dollar.
Will it make
Oh, will make, okay. That's right.
Most important part.
Will this make a rich?
Yeah. Will it make the also?
Okay, and there you go. Okay, so here, oh, well, okay, sorry, we need to cheat. Okay, so again, with the manual button, trigger, a trigger, you can't really rename it. The action item, you can. So, what do you want to name this step? Doesn't matter. It's completely arbitrary. Again, you want to name something, you want to name it so then that way someone that's external to the process will be able to look at it and then take it.
So this is the title that's going to appear in our OneNote notebook?
No, this is just the flows.
Just the flow.
Oh, float as well, okay.
Where naming your steps come in handy will be important the more complicated flows that you will build, especially if you do create variables or any other steps that depend on a previous step, because especially if you use the compose variable for, the data operations, that particular step you will want to brand appropriately, because if not, what will happen is that when you use the same steps over and over again, what it'll do, flow will automatically just append a numeral after it. 1, 2, 3, and so forth. Then you get to the point and it's like, okay, which is which? So hence the best practice is to brand it something that would be more descriptive of the particular step. So just again.
Boss O365 add note on OneNote.
Okay, that sounds good. I like that. Add note. Okay, that sounds good. All right, so we built the capturing the information. We built it that captured information, sent it to OneNote. And what's the next step?
Save before you lose it.
Actually, good. Yes, that is added under best practices too.
I haven't lost it.
Yes, and
Wow,
then that's where
wow.
the screaming and cursing happens. You're like, no. But yes, exactly. Because unfortunately, there are no automatic saves in Flow. So yes, exactly. Okay, so we've saved it just to make sure anything happens, crashes or whatever. So we have the trigger, the first action. So what's the next one?
Create to do.
Yeah. So the same situation. There you go. Now, of course, for those that have worked with flows, I'm just preaching to the choir here, but for those that haven't built a flow before, of course, when you start to search for a particular app that you want as your action, it's going to, if there's more than one result, it's going to list all that. So in top. So especially if it's quite a number, and let's say in this particular case, it's going to be our very first option, so we won't be needing to scroll. But in the event that it was not in the very first one, you may want to specify the app that you want, so then that way it filters the actions that are specific to that app. Oh, and just so you know, it's not anything to be of concern, but any trigger or action that has preview on it is actually a new feature that's being released. So, and just think of that as still a work in progress. It's still usable, but keep in mind that there may be situations that, the use of those triggers or actions can be dependent on the engineers at Microsoft. Because there may be, because until it's removed from the annotation of the preview, then it's a little bit more stable. Not to say that it's not stable now, but it's something to always just keep in mind of, is that you are using something that's technically a preview.
Preview's like a bit.
Sort of, yeah. It's definitely better. It's more than alpha. It's in production. It's in use, and it's available. Generally speaking, especially on your tenant, but it can be, it can depend. Yeah, exactly. All right. So here's the step for the to do. So remember, from what I said, there's at least, well, you already know that because it's already prompting you that there is already at least one that's a required field based on the red asterisk. But for best practice, besides the subject, what's the other recommended required field to specify? Because really everything else is technically optional. Anyone online? I'm sorry?
Let's have a due date.
Yep, we could have due date. Well, actually, even with the subject, rather than saying default, you get a little fancy, so then that way it captures. You could have it so then that way the subject in your to-do is aligned with your subject in your OneNote page. So then you have a one-to-one match. You could do it that way, or you could have it something else.
Big idea.
I'm sorry?
I'm sold on the big idea.
You want big idea? Oh, okay. Because there should be two, yeah, it's only in there for one. So I was going to pull it off from white, because it's the same that's in the OneNote as well, because it's capturing the same data. Okay, so for the due date, this is where, would you like to have it like in the example where we're going to use an expression?
Sure.
Okay. So we have now the expression that sorry, wrong one. Gotta switch tabs. Now you could always scroll the list, or like with anything, you could just always start. Now, I kept it simple, and to do the add dates. Once you add the first open parentheses, it'll show you, like with everything else with the string, it'll show you the format of what it's anticipating. So basically what it's asking for is what field you want for it to refer to and what variable that would act on that main field, so that numerical value. So in this particular case, we're actually going to then go back. Oh. To dynamic content. And I'm doing this, for example, I guess it shouldn't have disappeared. But we want to select, oh, sorry, now I know why it's disappearing. I'm going to do it again. Okay, now we're good. Okay, so here we have the beginning of the formula, the reference formula for add days, and we just need to add the parameters of that expression. So the example that was used in the exercise was really the created date for that particular page. We could do it that, or we could sort of do, if you want to experiment with something, remember we hadn't asked for a deadline date. So we could play with that. So which field do you want to play with?
So maybe the day before the deadline date.
Oh, okay. So here we're going to be using negative numbers, but I think all right. So comma, and let's say day before, so that'd be, we'll do -1. Actually, I wonder, well, we'll see. Now, not that, no, but this is the whole point of demo. Let's see if it will run. All right, so we have subject, due date. Do you want to specify the importance automatically? You can always change it once you go into your to-do.
They're all high.
All high.
They're all big ideas.
Okay. And status, do you want to have it already be set at a particular status?
I guess not started until you.
Or in progress? Or waiting on others? Not started?
Yeah.
Okay, not started. Okay, so now, do you want to put anything to the body of the to-do?
Just copy and paste the HTML from the top to the bottom since the time.
There you go.
Which, I'm sorry,
Copy and paste the HTML you had in the previous.
Sure.
OneNote.
That'd be cool if this works. Wow.
okay, this is gonna be good, hopefully, we'll see. Okay.
You're welcome.
We'll cross our fingers, and then of course, remember we created a list, so we're gonna specify that it gets added to that list. We're doing the save. So again, all right, we have our trigger. We have our first action that we've already renamed. We didn't add a description, but that's optional. Here, let's rename this. What do you want to name that step? Doesn't matter.
Big idea to do.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Or big idea reminders. How about that?
Okay.
Because again, it's completely arbitrary. Okay. So now we've built the flow. We renamed the appropriate steps.
You already started cursing early though, so.
That's true.
This
Now
is
before
supposed to-
testing, let's just make sure I'm going to run. Now that's a good sign. At least systematically there are no errors. All right. So now let's
You
go
saved
with. We're going to test it. I'm going to go ahead. Since obviously this is the first time we're doing it, there's not going to be a previous data. All right. Okay, that's a good sign. We're connected to the appropriate apps. Okay, so here we go. And see, we already, and this is good. So, like your question before, whether or not the comment, it's not showing up. So that is a behind the scenes comment. So then that's good. Because I knew for actions it is, but for the trigger, I wasn't sure. Okay, so let's see, what's our big idea?
So leftover pizza.
So, I'm sorry?
So the leftover pizza.
Okay, sell, okay, I guess donate won't really make us money, right? Oh, wait, sorry. So, oops. Leftover pizza, okay? Will it make us money?
No.
Okay. Oh.
Interesting.
Okay, now actually, this is something, okay, here's something that as you test your process, do we know whether or not the left toggle is yes or the right toggle is yes? So based on when we built the flow, it was first yes. So we're gonna,
I'm guessing that's yes.
That's on and that's it.
yeah, so we'll leave that, but that's something to then consider to then, before you actually put it in production, go back and label it accordingly. Oh, okay, thank you, sorry, oh no. Okay, expected cost.
$1. Sandy.
Well,
Well, zero
Pizza.
cost.
Zero cost. Sorry.
Yeah, zero cost to us.
Well, you probably have to get a business permit, right? It's the cost around business. Make
Deadline
money and
date.
spend money today.
Deadline date is today, okay.
You just hit the calendar.
Okay, so we have all the fields. We're gonna run the flow. For those that run before, when you hit done, uh-oh.
It's 'cause it
But
was
this is
yesterday.
good, this is good. Okay. It created the notebook.
It's because we, if you had made the deadline tomorrow, it might have worked, or even 2 days from now.
Oh, that's right, because
Yeah.
good point. So
It's too
let's,
close to the deadline. So when we were supposed to go out.
Yeah, I think there was a syntax error in that.
so let's
Okay.
go ahead. So in this, it could actually be the input.
Yeah.
Or it might be the format of the,
Okay, just so it creates, big idea.
try again.
Yeah, donate.
Oh, wait. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's right. So donate
Sell
Left
pizza
over.
to make money.
pizza. Oh, wait, no, that won't make us money. Expected cost.
Zero.
Okay, so now, yeah, it could be browser dependent, but there is a pop-up calendar to that. Let's just go, let's keep it at the 20. Let's see if that was the error that caused it to fail. Now this is my favorite part because you see it running. Yay!
So while we're doing that, quick question.
Yes.
Can you change the desired format for the date?
Instead of year, month, day.
Yeah.
Good question, because since that's yes, you can, because what you can do is that in the field where it's actually prompting you the format, you would have to specify the format that you want it to be in.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Okay. Come on. You guys are taking so long. And we named it differently. It's probably the same principle of, now since we may or may not get to the Power BI, but the presentation has the steps for the Power BI that really starts with running your patent search. The example I use is one of the free patent databases, Patent Scope from WIPO. I do recommend creating an account. It's a free account. The benefit of that is that you're able to save your queries and then you'll be able to just recall it back again. It's not required, but you can. The other one that you can use too is a SpaceNet, which is from the EPO, European Patent Office. Either one will work because in either case, you're able to export the results in a tabular format. That is key. You want to make sure you have it at least in Excel or CSV to bring it into Power BI. You don't want to use the USPTO because that will you won't be able to export it in a tabular format. And then you take that, when you bring it into Power BI, before you load the data, you want to basically normalize and clean up the data. Like, for example, the patent publication date, it doesn't recognize it as a date. You want to then specify the data type as a date field as opposed to the text field. And then you do want to do a little cleanup that basically the header row is a true header row, because the export that you get from the patent scope or even a SpaceNet, it has filler rows that includes and reiterates your search strategy. So basically, you just want to clean that up, and then it'll take your header row as your, as a true header row. And then once you do that, then go back and load it, and then just like what we did with Flow, make sure you save it. And this is all done with Power BI Client, the desktop. The final step, you have it after you add in all your visuals, then you publish it to the Power BI app. And then later on, you could share it. Now, if you do want to share your reports, your dashboards, I do recommend getting the free version, which is the Power BI Pro. Now, for those that are on the E5 tenants, that's included, so you don't even have to do an add-on. But anything less, it's a nominal add-on. And of course, there's the premium, but the premium is really more enterprise. Okay.
It might be because you have a head tag inside your HTML for the to-do.
Oh, that might. Let's see.
Also think that,
Well, that one was fine.
That one, okay, yeah, that one's fine.
I think that your formula with the date add,
Yeah,
I think when you click that, and rather than adding the actual field, it added some junk in there.
yeah,
Trigger date.
yeah. That's what I think is a syntax error on the date add, yeah.
So here, actually, I think who said the one with the HTML and the to-do? Because, oh no, it's a timeout.
Are you right now, are you in the note or the what to do?
That's the note one. Because, well, it failed there, but the to-do. All right, now this is where sometimes, this is where sometimes the cursing also begins.
Add days,
the
yeah.
hair pulling.
Add days.
Add days, there, first number of days to add is the second.
Timestamp's the first parameter, and then
So yes, exactly. Now, of course, now this basically is the link to the reference
Syntax,
documentation,
yeah.
which I have in the resource page.
so I think you're missing a parameter.
Right, or it could be that the add days, being that it's add days, it probably is not going to allow negative.
I think when you,
Excel and other functions that lets you.
Yeah.
Well, usually it does, yeah.
you'll have to, how are we for time?
How are we in time? Do you want to try troubleshooting it, or?
We're actually running short on time,
Oh,
unfortunately.
And it's a good thing, as it was running, I sort of, the presentation's up there and I already have the steps with the Power BI in there, which I verbally went through, but it's in the presentation, so if you go to the website, if you're not over there, feel free to pick up a flyer or the business card, and you could follow along there, and then this presentation will eventually be posted to the YouTube channel. So,
Okay, so.
It says trigger body date, it doesn't.
Wait, yeah, it didn't, this is interesting, that's what's.
Cool.
You need
Days after.
You need 3
But
parameters.
we put it in there though.
It didn't take.
Here, deadline date.
Really interesting when you click
That's
on it.
not right.
It's that, no, it's actually. All
When
right.
you start typing deadline date. Really?
Well, you want it to be, it's, when you start typing it up there, it's not gonna be filling it in from the dynamic content, it's filling it in from the functions.
Cool.
Hey, is anyone, wait, it definitely, it put it in twice.
Let's have a blue curse.
Okay. Good. update. Oh.
I think we're out of time, Chrissy.
Okay, we may not go, well, you'll see though, I'll go into the OneNote. I didn't post it to, and we'll just refresh. There it goes.
That's working.
Well, we saw that it was working. So post it there.
Gave you deadline date, but not the -1.
Well, remember
We're not
the
doing
deadline
it.
date here
Oh,
is what
It's
was
the to-do,
captured
yeah,
from
so-
the,
we're not
Initial
seeing it
input.
to do, okay.
exactly.
We get
So
So we get forgetting
what
fancy.
failed was the to-do. So, but we know it was something in the expression. So, and that was something that was really simple, but hey, it's the demo gods. and that's where it goes back to my very last point, that it's, you just have to be patient and just troubleshoot. Sometimes it requires just stepping away, and that maybe that walk around the block or the walk in the woods, or you'll have that
Your cans of
eureka
beer.
moment.
Your cans of beer, that don't really
So-
count.
The Power BI section is in there. These slides are already up on my website. You can actually pull it there. I bypassed, including long list of links. Basically, a link bibliography where I do emphasize the Power Platform community, including also the user groups as well. I do include, this is actually kind of cool, those that are really getting into the flow and you're still on the free, but you're still thinking of which P1 or P2 license is good for you, which may be changing. Pieter wrote that last November, and of course, I think from Inspire, there may be changes to the licensing. So this may be all moot, but I thought Peter's blog post was actually pretty good. And I have links to some Power BI stuff in there, including DAX guides and things like that, if you really want to build into it. And that's it. And sorry for going a little over, but hopefully it's informative. And last but not least, for those that didn't get the website, there's again the QR code, which actually does work, or you could pick up a flyer. And feel free if you want a pen.
All right. So we have a few more things, 5 more minutes of content, including a raffle. And then we'll head over nearby to get a beer.
Here? Wine. Here. Beer.
All right, so we would like to share some of the upcoming community events that might be of interest about the session. We have SharePoint Saturday in New York City happening next weekend. It's a free event if you've never been to one. There's usually about 5 or 6 different classroom-style educations available in 70-minute blocks, and that happens all day from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. So you kind of choose your own path based on whatever you're most interested in for that time slot. It's a free event. It's awesome.
And it's being rebranded. O365 Saturday, isn't it?
Yes, right,
No,
exactly.
Microsoft 365 Saturday, if you really want to.
It will always be SharePoint Saturday.
And if you always SharePoint Saturday, you'll find it on SBS events, but technically, yes, Tom, Anton, Amy, or any of those, it is rebranded as O365 Saturday, New York City.
So we have SP TechCon coming to Boston next month. If anyone wants to attend, if you're a member of this group, which by being here you are, you get $200 off a full conference pass. We're also going to be hosting our next session at the SP TechCon venue that Monday. I'll talk a little bit about that in the next few slides. It's going to be free if you want to come just to the user group, but if you wanted to spend all day learning about SharePoint and Office 365, they have also generously given us a discounted price just as a one-day pass for members. So that's always an option if you're interested. There's also a free conference coming in September, an online conference for for Microsoft Flow. There's a call for speakers if anyone's interested in doing a session. They haven't published the agenda yet, but keep an eye out for that. Maybe block your calendars off because it is during the week. There's also SharePoint Saturday in New England. And this is another free event, just like the one in New York City. There's going to be one taking place in this building later on this year. And of course, there's Microsoft Ignite, which is happening in Florida this November. This is a paid conference, Microsoft's annual bring all the technologies together. I'll be going to that one. Does anyone else want to Ignite? Not yet.
No.
They tend to sell out tickets a couple of months before the event, so if you're interested in going, maybe move forward on that sooner than later.
There's SharePoint Fest, isn't there?
There's SharePoint Fest in Chicago. I'm not sure when.
I thought that was, isn't it next month, August?
There's also a SharePoint online virtual 3-day conference that's free with that.
Yeah, you're absolutely
Cloud
right.
365.
Cloud 365.
Oh, right.
If you guys want to tweet us these additional events, we'll be happy to retweet them. Get the message out.
Really good.
Any other local events, coding camps, anything else that anyone can think of?
There's a SQL Saturday coming up in October, I think, or.
SQL Saturday in October?
Yeah, I don't remember exactly when.
That's another great event. So if you enjoy attending our user group sessions and are looking to learn more, there are other user groups in the greater Boston area that are also focused on different areas and different complementary areas. Definitely check them out. I think it's great leadership across the board that runs all of these user groups. So coming up, we are going to be hosting a 5-person experts panel at SP TechCon. So far we have 4 confirmed panelists. We're working on getting 1 more. So this is not going to be our usual venue nor our usual date. This is going to be on Monday, August 26th at 7 p.m. If you do decide to do the 1-day pass, I think from like 5 to 7 p.m. there's like the exhibit hall hours where they serve appetizers and drinks. And this event will take place directly after that. This will be at the Sheraton Boston Hotel, right over by the production center. So definitely come check us out there. And before we get to the raffle, one more slide. Is anyone running into any problems in their Office 365?
Oh, if anyone online has any resolution to why that flow didn't run, feel free to chime in.
So does anyone want to raise a community challenge? Again, someone here tried to solve it.
No, I did an observation this week. Totals have come back. So if you do a view, all of a sudden at the bottom, you see count, you see total. I haven't done the math yet. It's if it does math again, but that showed up this week.
All right, that's cool.
And the new search showed up about 3 weeks ago. We're the standard release.
Is anyone hiring or looking for work? Yes.
Hello, everyone. I'm an IT recruiter for Interlock Business, and we're actually looking for a systems analyst, specifically with Microsoft 365 experience, who's going to be responsible for the deployment and training and online training, just like this. So we're hiring that role within a month. And we're also hiring 13 other IT positions in our company. So I have flyers, and please come take them. And then you can email me directly, and you'll immediately be skipped to a phone screening if you contact me directly.
Excellent. If anyone's looking or knows someone else looking, it looks like there's a lot of opportunity there. Is anyone else looking or hiring?
Looking.
Okay. Well, there you go.
There you go.
Is that the kind of role that you're looking for, or are you looking for something a little bit different?
Interested.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so again, huge thanks to Centric. Without sponsors, we can't have this kind of event. All right, now let's get to the raffle. So we have a few $25 gift cards to Amazon. Too bad it's after Prime Day, but